Good evening. It is 5:35 on Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. It is the monthly meeting of the Urbana Human Relations Commission. Could we please have a roll call?
Frances Rigberg Baker.
Here.
Carol Bradford. Stacy Burnett. Lisa Mosley.
Here.
Daniel Larson.
Here.
Peter Resnick.
Here.
Catalina Thomas. Samuel Bindum. Lolita Dumas.
Here.
Brianna Donald.
Thank you. Looking over the minutes from our June meeting, are there any additions, edits, or corrections, or can we move approval?
Move approval with one change, which is Dan was, I believe, absent from the last meeting, but he was mentioned down at the bottom of the minutes for the adjournment. Just a copy-paste error.
All right, we'll get that fixed.
So moved with the edit.
Great. Is there a second?
A second.
Alrighty. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Take a second here. Could you let Stacy get settled? Just taking a second here. Ready? Looking over tonight's agenda, are there any additions, edits, or corrections to be made? Or if not, is there a motion to approve, please?
I move we approve.
Right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is public participation, and we are happy to welcome Karen Sims here tonight. She's going to be leading a workshop later in July, and she's going to give us a little background and share with us what's going on. So Karen, welcome. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Welcome. So what we've been working on and what we'll start, the group will start on July 22nd, which is our Monday, is a 6-week group for women who've been impacted by trauma. And we are really focusing on improving participants' resiliency and wellness and coping strategies. And so each week the group will have sort of its unique focus because we want people to sort of really understand how trauma and stress happens and affects them in different domains of life. So trauma in relationship to how it impacts you with yourself, trauma and how it impacts you in relationships to how you parent, trauma and how it impacts your finances, and how it impacts your relationships. And so in addition to sort of talking about signs and symptoms and problems, we're going to introduce new coping strategies. So so the group will be interactive and skill building, but also we also want people to feel connected to each other. So there's also a component around building community connections, social connections, building group relationships, building positive peer relationships. And then last but not least, the only thing to add about the group is we want to incentivize participants, not in terms of like paying them to attend, but we also realize that the barriers that sometimes get in the way of women's participation in groups like childcare or just logistical barriers, we want to make sure that those are addressed, and so that the partnership with Cunningham Township allows for us to address some of those logistical barriers. And we will give women treats and goodies a little bit, just so that it turns into a feel-good space, so that when we're talking about a new skill or talking about a self-care strategy, they have the opportunity to practice it. So we want to reduce, again, obstacles because, and I didn't provide a context. I anticipate that some of this is sort of self-explanatory, why we're talking about trauma and stress. So if we're thinking about any of those social cultural issues that you think about impacting women and families in our community, everything from community violence to school engagement to early childhood to even diversity and equity, trauma sometimes is an connects all of those threads. And what communities have found is if they improve people's skills and abilities to reduce their stress, and improve their coping strategies, then parents and women are able to sort of be more engaged with each other, it improves intergroup conflict, it builds stronger communities, and it also helps people be more resilient. And we know 6 weeks is not going to like fix everything, right? We're not, it will not be the panacea, because it generally, if we're talking about any behavior change, we're looking at 6 to 8 weeks, right? Just to start like a little change like weight loss. But if we can give more tools, right? If you give women tools, they tend to use them, and they also tend to share it with their children and their friends. And so this is sort of planting seeds that you can build upon, really being intentional. So we've done outreach to the schools, to the township. We've reached out to some families that have been impacted by gun violence directly. So we've done some targeted outreach just to sort of make sure that women in the room are ones who might most need it, because there are lots of women in the community who see themselves as being impacted by trauma. I will tell you, I was at the Township Self-Care Day, and there were a number of women who came through who knew about the group and were super excited. And so we know, but we also know that there are women who might not see themselves being impacted by trauma and stress, and so we've done some targeted outreach so that they can maybe identify how this might benefit them too.
Great. Any questions for Karen?
Wow. And we will do some assessments, so we'll do, and I hate that word, right? So assessment means, right, for lay folks, we're going to sort of, when you start off, how do you feel about yourself? How is your self-care? How are your stressors? And at the end of the group, we're going to say kind of, are there improvements? And we're going to communicate, right? Change happens over time. So we might not have people go from high stress level of 10 to low stress level of 0, but we would expect, right, with some supports in place, using the skills, that we can get people down to maybe 8s or 7s. If you start off at 10, if we can get you to an 8, that's a significant measure of change, and that you can continue to build upon, right, if you continue to use the skills. So we will be doing some pre and post measurements to look at change over time.
For anyone listening, could you tell, is there any cost associated with the workshop?
There is
And-
no cost,
and,
so
we-
it is completely accessible, and so the way that you do is you call the Human Relations, you call for Cecilia Clark, Ms. Cecilia Clark, and she is handling all the registrations, and she'll have just some basic questions to ask, and also to make sure we'll find out if you need childcare.
And we noticed, it does say spaces are limited.
Spaces are limited, so we only have room. We're trying to keep it pretty intimate, so we only are going to try to keep it to around 10 women right now, just because we want to keep it interactive and personal, and we want to make sure that everyone has a voice.
Great.
I'm sorry, who is this program through? I missed the organization.
It is actually, you're sponsoring it.
Okay, I know we were sponsoring it, but I
It's not,
I didn't know we were.
yeah, no, it is actually just yours, so
Okay,
created just for you. So you can, yeah.
I was wondering about the age requirements for this.
So there is no age requirement. I'm anticipating we're looking at women, so anybody over 18, and we're really trying to prioritize women who have kids in Urbana schools, and that could be from early childhood all the way to high school. So we are really trying to make sure that there's good partnership, because, right, we want to make sure that people have an infrastructure. This is one tool in your toolbox that can help. If you then go into school and connect with social workers or other supports or PTA, hopefully there are lots of other things that can keep reinforcing this, the things that we'll talk about. So to see this as just another, like, in some ways, like a booster vaccination that will connect you to other supports. And that's one of the things that we really emphasize, because we know mental health, recovery, resiliency, like getting over stress, connecting to other people really does make a difference. And so we will do a lot of how do you do that, because it's so hard sometimes just to make those connections, to feel like you're competent, to feel like you have a voice. And so we'll do a lot of talking about that.
And so the measurements that you had stated earlier, is that just during the 6-week process, or will there be a follow-up after the
So,
6
so
weeks?
with consent, so, part of that, we're going to negotiate, given that this is the first pilot, I don't want to make commitments for women who to be like, hey, we've already figured out everything you're going to want and need, because we are allowing some space for co-creation. So I would love to have the ability to follow up over time, but I want to make sure that participants can, you feel comfortable if you're coming to the group, that you also feel like you have some voice about kind of what happens. But yeah, I would be incredibly interested to see, how folks use the tools in the toolbox. And if you need a refresher, because if you've ever done any behavior change, you could be really good on a plan, and then 3 weeks out or a month out, you're like, this isn't quite working. And so we would love to figure out all of those things. Great question.
Dan?
Cecilia.
I just want to, first of all, to piggyback on what Karen just said. This is kind of an organic approach that we're taking. And so as the program moves forward, I think it'll become more clear in terms of what makes sense for us to put in place. We'll have participant input, and hopefully at the end it'll crystallize for us in terms of the next step, if there is a next step. Okay. But can I also announce where it's going to be?
I was thinking.
It's going to be at the Urbana Free Library starting Monday, July 22nd, and it will run for 6 weeks every Monday through August 26th. The program starts at about 5:30, and we anticipate running until about 7:15 or so, but at the Urbana Free Library. And we have a dedicated room on the first floor where we'll have the workshops.
Well, we will have light refreshments
Yes.
too, so that, we realize that's dinner hour.
Other questions? Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you so
coming
much.
in. We'd love to extend an invitation for you to come back in the fall at one of our meetings and share with us your thoughts on the experience and where we go next.
I would love that, and we're going to do some art-based things, so I probably will have some show and
Whatever you
tell.
can, whatever you can share.
Okay,
Certainly,
thank
it's a
you.
private situation, but yeah, whatever you can share, we'd love to hear about the experience.
Thank
for
you
you
so
and
much.
the participants. So thank you for coming in, Karen.
And Vasilia, do you have online copies of the announcement so that we could email to friends who might be interested? Right.
Yes, I do have it
I mean, I can always scan it and then send it, but it seems like it
And
would be
we
good.
can get that on the website as well. People will
That'd
be
be
able to go
perfect,
to
and
the
then we could just point
HRC
people
link
to
to
it.
be able to get to the information.
Thank you. All right, good night. All righty, moving on. We have no old business, but we do have some new business. I'll just quickly state that I've certainly loved, first off, I'm not going anywhere. I talked to the mayor last month, and I'm staying on, but Peter and I talked probably 3-4 months ago, and this is long overdue, but I think it's time maybe we shift up. Not that I'm some exalted leader, but just, we're all even, whatever. But I think it's time let's mix it up. So we thought it might be time for Peter and I to step down from our roles as chair and vice chair, but certainly we're not going anywhere as commissioners. But, so Vasilia, I believe, sent us out an email maybe about 10 days ago, kind of outlining a proposed process for how we might elect those 2 new positions to the commission. If you had a chance to look over that, we wanted to discuss that tonight and then approve of an actual selection process that we're going to take up in September and a vote. So the process was pretty straightforward. Just anyone interested, we would just love if you could take a few minutes to reflect on your experience on the commission so far and where you'd like to take it into the future. So maybe write a paragraph, 2 at the most. We don't, we're all busy. Please don't have to kill yourself over a long dissertation. Thank you. A text. Just a few thoughts on Well, hey, whatever, it's pretty wide open, just, where you want to go. You'd submit those to Vasilia. I think the deadline was the 23rd, maybe? Sorry, August 23rd, that's a Friday. And then she will circulate that to the rest of us so we can read them in advance of our September meeting, and then we're going to hold a vote. I don't mean to be quick with it, was that a pretty fair?
That was a pretty fair summary.
Okay.
But please keep in mind that that was just a suggestion.
But
And you guys can revise it any way you like. It was just a jump-off point for discussion.
sadly, I've been here, I don't remember how we did it when when I took over for Marion, so
You volunteered
I think I volunteered, but,
with a lot of support.
yes.
So.
Peter?
And given that I'm not going to stand for either of these positions, this is just by way of, and I mentioned this to Vasilia, if there is one change that I thought might be possible, I was willing last time to be considered for vice chair, and no way on earth was I willing to be considered for chair. The way we've got it set up is most votes, second most votes. So if folks think that they might be willing to put their name in for vice chair but would not be willing to be considered for chair, maybe we should at least have that as a possibility, as opposed to you got to put your name in for chair, and if we all vote for you, well, you're stuck with it. Just to give people the possibility to say, I'd be willing to do the vice chair role, but not the other one. Other than that, I think having everybody who wants to do it do a little paragraph, I think would be fine. We don't want to turn this into any fancy campaign, but we all know each other, and so having an idea, vision, and where we're leaning would be good.
Other comments, questions, thoughts?
So, Peter, you're saying that people should be allowed to submit their names for chair and vice chair, correct?
If they want to, right? And if we have no one who submits their name for vice chair, then we don't have to do two votes. We can just do one vote and say whoever's first, whoever's second.
Okay.
If we have nobody who submits their name for chair, we'll go around the table again. But yeah, if folks want to just submit their name for vice chair, I think that should be fine.
Okay.
So a slight change, but essentially the same as what Vasilia outlined. Any other comments, questions?
Are these responsibilities for these two positions outlined in the ordinance? Or is this just
No,
something
I-
that? Okay, I just want to make sure I hadn't
I've been
missed something.
mimicking Marion for almost a decade now. So I learned from
I
him.
can't believe how
Yeah,
long.
I know.
I know, sorry.
think yeah.
And the
I will certainly,
duties.
Peter and I will be here to assist, whatever, but yeah, nothing's formally outlined.
The duties have also ranged between the HROs, because like when Alex was on board, he was very into there were going to be these separate programs and committees, and so my experience was there was a lot more work during that period of time. Sometimes it's much more loosey-goosey. If there's a hearing, then there's a lot of work to be done. Luckily, those are few and far between. But, so yeah, I am part of this, if you're not sure whether you want to volunteer, is have a discussion with Vasilia. I know she's looking to more formalize our ongoing agenda in the future, so to get an idea of what's going to be involved in that.
I would just, from my experience overall, your primary responsibility is sort of leading this meeting. Handful of times a year, they need you to come in and sign something in your position as chair. I've still yet to be in this position and really get into a hearing. So that I wish I could share that experience. I've sat in one as a commissioner, but never as this person. But that does. There would be some workload there if and when that were to occur.
But
we
we
also
certainly
don't know
don't
how-
want to let it scare you off.
Yeah.
At this point, I think there has been some revision done where if we were to have a hearing,
And that's
we
gonna-
would appoint a hearing officer.
And that's going to look a lot different as well, because we did it. We have that pilot or test.
And we
that
still haven't
used
done
yet,
it,
so-
yeah.
Which is going to change our involvement.
Although
significantly.
that is only for the employment case, so should someone come with a housing case or something else, most of the responsibility for the chair in that case, because you still appoint a hearing officer, and most of the responsibility for the chair is signing subpoenas and things like that. It's mostly coming in, but it's just a lot more instances of signing things than during the year.
But I will
Not a
say,
bad job.
I
It's
will
not a
say
bad
it's,
job.
You have to also know the rules, Robert rules
yes. and-
of law. Yeah.
But when you have this guy sitting next to you,
Oh, yeah.
you can cheat, because I assure you I have. Because this guy has been thankfully,
I have already offered to write up a little cheat sheet. The four primary Roberts rules that you need to know are motion, second, discussion, vote.
Yeah.
In that order. And as soon as you know those four, everything else is pretty easy.
I mean, I love the commission, so it's certainly been a joy to be a part of the commission, and it's been cool being the chair for these years, but I mean, that's my push for it. It's been rewarding, but that's also just the larger actions of this commission as a whole that I quite am grateful to be a part of, so. So do we need a formal motion and approval, or is this something that requires that? Look, I'm turning to, on procedural matters either, or what, Vasilia, what would you like? Should we,
I just think a general agreement, consensus that we're gonna basically use that process and see what happens.
Yeah, I think the only thing the bylaws require is the vote. So, yeah, however we want to arrange that, I think is fine.
So you don't have an August meeting.
You don't have an August meeting, so the intention is to vote in September after everyone has had an opportunity to review the nominations and hopefully the nominations, and then we'll vote and go from there, and we'll have a new chair.
and we did just if anyone's listening, we just turned over into the new fiscal year, so we thought that was also, that's kind of why the timing of it, thought it made sense as we're starting,
Yes.
a new year, let's, start out with some fresh leadership, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, and I believe we're running a little bit late officially. The rules require it in July, but
Yeah.
we'll get it done.
Yes.
All right. Vasilia, we'll turn it over to you for our staff report for the month, please.
Let's start with the certifications. That's the easy part. And we have two for this month. One is new.
I guess I've done this in the past. I have a family connection to Davis Hoke, so I'll recuse myself, as they say, or was that the right? Yeah. I will not participate in that. But yes, we have a new applicant in Mad Dog Cleaning. We have a staff recommendation of 2 years, and we have one renewal, as mentioned, Davis Hoke, and that is for 1 year. Any comments or questions?
Well, with David Hawk, they previously were given 6 months, but since that time, they have come in and tried to explain their good faith effort to the commission, and that's the logic and the reason behind recommending the 1 year for them.
Peter, do you have?
I'll go ahead and make the motion, just in case folks want to discuss after. I move that we approve Mad Dog Cleaning 2 LLC for 2 years and Davis Hoke for 1 year.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Fran. Discussion? Any additional questions or comments, concerns?
So can you explain the 1 year, given that the population went up, they had a reasonable amount of churn, and the numbers got worse? Are we assuming, when did Davis Hoke come in? which group, I'm trying to remember who this was. Who did we talk to? This wasn't the two people who came in month before last, or last month.
That was not them. That was not them, I know.
And do we know, was this another union labor situation?
They're a union shop.
Given that, and given that our previous discussion, I mean, we need to get to the union issue at some point, but then I'm comfortable with the 1 year until we start digging into it.
All right. Any final comments or questions, or? All right. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? All right, thank you. Vasilia, back to you.
Difficult time with the mic. As it relates to my monthly project summary, the most important thing I want to emphasize from the report is, number one, the HRC Information Fair. I just want us to start thinking about the kinds of things that we want to see the HRC engaged in, and what kind of visibility we want for this commission. I think this is a particularly important time for us to have a presence in our community, and for people to realize that there are resources within Urbana that can help them address not just employment discrimination issues, but other issues as well. So I just really want you guys to think about that, because we're going to put together an agenda for this new fiscal year, and I'm not going to overtask anyone, but I think a couple of really key events would be very helpful. I did attend, because Monique and Preston were sunning on the island, so I attended the Jetty Roads event. It was very, very nice, very well attended, a lot of city participation as well. And we have an upcoming event in August, the CU Day. We plan on having a presence there. As a matter of fact, the bags that Monique passed out tonight to you guys are bags that we're going to fill with school supplies and give out at the CU Day activity. So we're real excited about that. The boot camping, I'm still struggling trying to get a grip on how we can pull that off. I have not given up. It's just been kind of slow. The purchasing ordinance, we still haven't moved it beyond it being a finished draft, but we have not gotten it to before City Council yet. So, and I didn't have a chance to check with Todd to see realistically when that may be at this point, because he's been very busy, but hopefully I'll have more for information about this particular issue in our September meeting. And lastly, I have two formal complaints that I'm currently investigating. Both are employment-related cases, and I have one housing case that I have not taken a formal complaint for, because I have hoped that we can resolve it informally rather than taking a complaint and investigating it and going through that process. So, so currently, right now, I'm working on about three different complaints under our ordinance. That's it.
Yeah, what was the date of the CU Day? When was that?
Oh, gosh. Is it the 12th? I think it's August 12th. It's Friday, Saturday. It starts Friday, but the big to-do, I think, is Saturday.
The 10th, the weekend of the 10th.
Okay.
It's August. That's called what? Oh, that's right, okay. I saw that.
And
Location? Douglas.
That's right, Douglas.
And just to make sure the bug is still in your ear, with regard to the union thing, you had mentioned a couple of months ago that the new city manager was interested in talking about process and how that would all work. I believe there's more than one of us who would be happy to come help out with that.
Okay, thank you for the friendly reminder.
All righty. Vasilia, thank you as always. Are there any announcements before we adjourn? All righty. Well, we will take the month of August off, as we do annually, to celebrate the end of summer, sadly. But enjoy it, and we'll see everybody back here in September. Have a great night. Meeting adjourned.